everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Accelerate Your Career in SCM. So I'm using the two terms, the career and SCM. The focus of my presentation will be to understand supply chain management at a holistic level and the new skills and the competency required to meet the needs of the industries post-COVID-19 and also with the onset of Industry 4.0. What type of new skill sets are required around to be relevant to the industries around. Now, when I use the word term SCM, supply chain management, this term was basically coined in 1982, but remained all the time in the white papers and this, but picked up the momentum in late 90s. But if I look at the concepts of supply chain management, they were there even before that. Even in the early 20th century when Ford came with assembly line. Now these concepts, when I talk around, were of industrial engineering type, optimization type. I remember those days in 70s when people used to go for masters in industrial engineering, masters in operation management, and all the IITs were there around. So that means the concepts were there around, but that as a whole, SCM was not visible around. Even if you look at the academic side and the MBA's program, there used to be MBA in operation. Even still in many organizations, there's still MBA in operation. And supply chain management used to be a part of it. But if you look around supply chain management with a score model, operation should be part of it. And which is true actually nowadays, because a lot of operations are being outsourced around. So in short, supply chain is taking the key focus on it. In spite of all this, there has been a confusion about it, let me tell you. I remember the time 10 years back when I moved from US to India. Even in the US also I've seen the term supply chain they thought around is basically movement. Yes, to some extent is one part. So when they talk of movement, even the transportation company, I remember one workshop I did for PhD chambers, 95% people were transporters. But the workshop was called supply chain. I mean, I can understand transportation is one part of supply chain, but then people said, okay, I'm a transportation company, it doesn't look so nice, let me call as supply chain solution company. So the word was being misused, there was a confusion about it. Not only in India, even abroad also I see it around. But I would say in the last few years, I think it has picked up the momentum. Even at the C-level post, if I talk around, initially they were all, except few sectors. Other sectors, supply chain was all in silos. I'm dealing with procurement, another guy is dealing with logistics, fine. But we are not connected together. Planning is being done by someone's. They were all silo function. But if you look at the COVID-19, the one lesson we learned from COVID-19 was the visibility, the transparency part. So when we talk of visibility and the transparency end-to-end, can only happen when we use the term supply chain management as a holistic way. Not, well, you are in charge of this, I'm in charge of this, but we don't even interact together. We don't have the right ecosystem connected together. So that's, I think, the lesson we have learned from COVID-19. So many people at many companies around now, they're on supply chain as one function as a whole. And even in the top posts around, I mean, you have seen the name of Apple all the time, you know it. The people are coming from supply chain background or operation, procurement background, going at the top level, at the C level. So that change is happening around. Academic side also, as I said to you, MBA is still called MBA operations. But if I look from today's context, operation to me is a part of the supply chain, should be more focused on MBA. I remember the time when I did MBA in the US, MBA operations supply chain was only one component of it. So it needs still major changes in X places around. Well, friend, with this background, let me get down to the subject. Now, what we plan to cover, the key takeaways from this, as I said to you, the holistic understanding of supply chain concepts. perspective, the context of SCM. And then how does talent comes into the pictures around? Because when supply chain, okay, we are trying to again emphasize it, but with the COVID-19, Industry 4.0, the type of skill sets which are required to be successful, you need something more than what you had in the past. So there's a shortage of talent around. And I'll give you some statistics in terms of jobs, in terms of employments, but to be relevant there. And supply chain span is also growing up. Demand for new competency is coming around. So to cover up this, there's an IDSCM certification. UN has come up around. I mean, it's not the first time they come up, but now they come with the revised version. I remember 1988 when I was in Geneva for some time. And that's the time I was working with a different organization, but I was based in the same ITC Geneva office, which is a part of the UN, International Trade Center. My office was in the same building. That's the time also they came up with different subjects on procurement, export, import, to help the small scale industry, to help the industries in developing countries. So they have been very active for the last many, many years, I would call around, in supply chain management. And now with the new needs, they come up with a new certification called IDSCM, International Diploma in Supply Chain Management. It comes from the United Nations. I'll explain a little bit more on that part. What competency and skills are covered? What is the demand today? Are they being covered and how they are being covered? The registration process, but broadly what I will say objective is understand the future of SCM talent. And we cannot talk of talent without understanding at a holistic level what is SCM and how it is changing and how it is evolving with the time around. So there's a need to upskill the competencies around to accelerate your career. Now let me first start with a very basic understanding of supply chain concept. I know most of you know it, but let me repeat maybe for some people. In simple word, when we talk of a supply chain as a system of organizations, people, activities, information, resources, anything in moving the goods or service from supplier to customer. So basically from upstream to downstream, you're connecting everybody. I know in the past also it was connected, nothing wrong with that, but they were all in silos. My job is upstream, your job is downstream. And within upstream also we may have divisions around. But now they think, guys, if we have to be successful, we cannot be in silos. We have to work as integration way. The bottom line, if I talk of supply chain, is integration, end to end. Now the problem comes, it's nice to say integration, but then the tools have to be there around. If the tools are not there, just integrating, sitting over a coffee tea is not sufficient. You want online information being connected, which is possible today. So once it is possible, the whole concept is changing around. So this is why it was said in the past also, but now I think it's becoming much more emphasized. It's not the businesses, neither the countries. They don't compete. The supply chain competes. Even if X country has to become smarter than others, it is their supply chain knowledge, their supply chain tools, their supply chain awareness that is most important around. So you can see in the bottom line, in the figure around, it ends from supplier to customer. So there's the upstream, there's a downstream, connecting everybody. Now here we are showing through cloud, I mean everybody's information, what is happening at the supplier end, store knows, customer knows. So every information is visible, transparent. Even if the demands have changed from the customer, I don't go in the linear path. Information is passed available in a network form. And the time is not far. I know so far we are calling as a chain. And chain means it's more like a linear path. But once I think we get much more into this, it could become supply chain network. So that's the way it is around. The perspective, if I talk of supply chain management, any activity at home, even a service activity or a goods activity, whatever you talk around, there's a complex web of supply chain. Nothing happens overnight. Even if you're developing a software, there are many players involved into this. You might be getting somewhere open source software, then somebody is helping you to develop something, then you are doing the final packing of it, then you are trying to market it around. So there is a web of supply chain everywhere, whether it's a service industry or a goods industry. So in both cases, there is a complex web. I'm using the word complex web around. Now, if I talk about the word complex, I use typically for those people who are dealing from end to end, not tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers and other silos. And customer also not customer tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. There could be hundreds of players, hundreds of activities involved end to end. And you can imagine this type of complexity, if I want to get the visibility, it is really complex. So you need the right tools around. SCM is about managing relationship. Some people say, guys, if I can maintain the relationship from upstream supplier to downstream activities, great. But relationship again can't be built if I have no transparencies around. Primary purpose is to balance demand and supply. That's a key thing. Let's be honest. You may call it demand and supply, or you could say at the end of the day, I want to improve my customer experience in a cost-effective way. So some people could define, guys, SCM is basically to improve the customer experience and make it more optimized. It is the heart of the commercial success and failures. There's another people who calls around this different way. They say, guys, all assets are involved in the chain, wide range of assets. Somebody is storing it, somebody is transporting it, somebody is making for you, somebody is buying the raw materials around. So each one has assets around. So how do I optimize these assets, the 4 C's around? Customer experience, the cost part of it, compliance part of it, and nowadays the carbon footprints. I know that these talks have been going for a long, but now I think the sustainability part is becoming important. So in short, if I had to put in a very academic way, guys, if you want, I have put down so much asset in the whole chain, end to end, might be my subcontractor money or whatever money is around. At the end of the day, all of us are having one purpose, customer experience. So you need to have end-to-end holistic way. So this is how I look at the perspective of SCM with different terminologies around. This is why I'm showing this specifically around, because many places people mix up logistic with supply chain. Logistic is a very critical part of supply chain, no second thought about it. At the end of the day, we are moving, no second thought. But logistic is a one component of it. It is important component, but it's only one component. Does not mean logistic alone. You change the term and say supply chain solution, and you're only doing logistic activities around, or you're only doing transportation. And transportation is only one component of logistic. So I think this clarity is required around, because if the clarity is not there, it looks like it is not a profession. If it's a profession, it needs the right terminology, it needs proper understanding of the terms around. Now here is the one objective-wise I've already explained around end-to-end supplier to customers. Focus is on supply and demand. I know some people are saying, we are doing with S&OP, blah, blah. All those things are there, great. But demand is fluctuating, and particularly in COVID-19, we are seeing people are becoming so digital. Today they like X thing, tomorrow they change their mindset around. You might have done the planning of production, you might have done the scheduling of it, and 1 week before customer comes to you guys, sorry guys, I don't need this. So that means that's issue around. So these rights are there, all the rights which you know very well. The role of supply chain. So far we have been focusing on what? All the time. What is to be done? End of it. How is the issue? So the focus is also important around is on the how side. How do I do it in a more effective way? How do I do it in a more transparent way? So that is the focus I think is changing around now. Human equation certainly is very important around. Nothing can happen without their role, they being, sanitized, on that part around. If they are not sensitized on that part around, this will not happen. Lessons learned from the COVID-19 emphasize, which I know it was a big challenge. Now we are getting out of this. So it basically tells us, the guys, we have to reset the obsolete system. We have lived on this for a long. The focus has to be resilience, agility, and sustainability. I know these terms are new to me also, let me be honest. In the past, I come from that generation where we were taught about the lean procurement. We were taught about just in time. Now people say, guys, good to be lean. I'm not questioning that. But if I cannot respond to the customer, my leanness has no meaning. My just in time has no meaning to me. So I should be able to respond to the customer in right time. That means I need a wonderful demand planning. So agility like a tiger, a lion, you need to be agile. Then next comes the resilience part. I remember the time when we were building up business continuity plan for our all 200 country offices around business BCP we were trying to develop. But the BCP was focusing only on the risk part, which we could foresee. So we could foresee the risk and we used to have probability of each one. And then he said, guys, okay, let's do this way. 99% it used to be let risk come, we'll manage it. So, but now we're talking about the resilience part, which could have too much of disruptions, which are totally unknown, unforeseen, like the one we have COVID-19. So now the focus is the resilience. Sustainability, I know we have been hearing all of us for long, but now I think the green procurement, the green processes, I mean, good, we want to develop, but we have to take care of environment as well. So this is where sustainability part is also catching up the important. Then we have Industry 4.0. If we want to be the leader, we hear a lot nowadays, even from the prime ministers, politicians, everybody's saying that, guys, we have to become the supply chain hub. And honestly, if you look, I mean, back in our own country, we've done reasonably well on the software side. But when it comes to the manufacturing side, many places, except few sectors, other places we have taken a shorter path. Import something, put few things, and end of it. And we are not the world factory in many of the areas around. While the journey of China and India started more or less same time, but we were left behind because that was not focused around. So if we want to be then really, if say global, you can say global factory of X and Y, we need a wonderful supply chain hub. This is where you hear a lot, supply chain hub has to come. India has to become the supply chain hub. If we want to be the real supply chain hub, then we need obviously the right technology, right talent for that around. Okay, this one I'll just skip it, the types of SCM. I'm sure you all know the push system, the pull system. So now we can't live with the push and build up a big inventories around. You want customer driven. So it's a customer centricity is required around. This is where I wanted to tell on the holistic side. Supply chain is all about integration. Now you can see around 4 people are sitting around. The one guy, maybe we are all in the same boat. Same boat means same organization, same enterprise. There's a department called, let's say, one is dealing with logistics, one is dealing with planning, one is dealing with procurement, one is dealing with other activities around. But at the end of the day, if we don't work together, all the pillars are not supporting each other. And 2 guys are saying, oh, I've done my job. It's not my problem. It is the problem of someone else. So now we want all the key pillars together, the planning part, procurement part, a sourcing part, operation part, logistic part, because that's the end-to-end. If we don't have integrations and we don't have a visibility among us, then even if 2 people are failing, the whole boat is failing. We all will sink. So this is the focus, I think, which is coming up, integration. Now come the industrial revolution. I think you all know very well from 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we are talking of digitalization, not digitization, digitalization. Digitization we started in Industry 3.0. I remember the time when I came from the college, 69, 70, when they came up around. We had computers. We started with this program around. I remember the program I did for the whole Delhi administration on computerizations. I'm talking of 1983, I did around for all the IAS officers. So you can see around Industry 4.3.0, and now we're talking on digitalization. By nature, it should be digital, not that you scan something analog to digital. It has to be built in digital. And now you know the government of India has also come up around all companies, anything with a turnover of more than 100 crores, all will be e-invoicing. which to me is a wonderful, because I have gone through it. I remember the 200 country office when I used to deal with them. Purchase order is there, receipt is there. Still, we are struggling with accounts to get it approval around. Then we came with ERP 3-point matching. But now with this, I think it's a great move around. So getting into this, I mean, the mindset is getting into that to become more digital. So in short, the supply chain skill sets requirements is changing if you are to succeed. If I talk of a digital industry 4.0, that means it has to be digital supply chain also. So within supply chain also, which you could call supply chain 4.0, logistic has to be 4.0, procurement has to be 4.0, warehousing has to be smart around, everything has to be there if you have to cope up with this. Now, this is where I thought, let me give you the bigger overview of the supply chain at the holistic level, not the very micro level. Now, this calls for different type of talent. Now, here I'm trying to put you some statistics around it. If I see the global supply chain is $25 trillion per year. And during the next decade, I would say around the number of available jobs is going to be grown double. In the past, companies were not, but they were ignoring it, guys. I got my procurement guy, I got this guy. But now people are saying, guys, no, we need people, the leaders, who can cover all end to end and manage them, all the functions together. So that type of requirements are coming around. I do get sometime requests, can you recommend someone's? But then I get someone guy who only knows one function, doesn't know the other function. So we really need the leaders who have an understanding of the whole gamut. Number of openings for analysts is picking up. A supply chain leaders cannot succeed without wonderful, good analysts around, data analysts, giving you signal, guys, the risk is here. And you also need good demand planner also. So that type of supply chain leader is not just buying and shopping. You need the planners, you need the analysts to support the supply chain functions around. Now, key reasons for this ever-growing shortage is people are available in different organizations. They'll say, oh, I'm coming from logistic background. I can take care of supply chain. Somebody will say procurement. Somebody says planning, I can do it. But they don't have a holistic understanding. I would say across the board, there's a gap on this. So there is a shortage on this part. Although in the past few years, I know e-commerce has given a big push to the supply chain management, but again, it is on that areas around. But other sectors is still to pick up. Now, underlying reasons of the shortage is certainly SCM in the past was not having that C-level profile. It was just a support function, many places. And some places I have seen procurement is separate, supply chain is separate. So when I ask them, who's supply chain manager? So two were different parts around. I'm sure those who are participating, they can see themselves. This change has coming up. This perception is starting to change at the C-level executive. So C-level executives also are trying to understand the importance of this around. But there's a steady stream of CEOs. The business president who have risen directly to supply chain functions. There are a few examples. Apple is one of them. Now that mode is changing around, I would say. Coming back to changing face of supply chain, certainly it is becoming much bigger span around, from sourcing to production planning to delivery and service, complete end to end. So when we are shifting the needs, so you need different tools, you different goals and skills at the management level and leadership level. One is at the management level, yes. Management means just managing it. Leadership means who can bring new ideas out of it. So you need a leadership level also. Supply chain is getting exponentially more complex around. The span of control, as I told you, is expanding in a big way. It starts from supply planning. And supply planning means you cannot do it until you have a demand planning. You're part of it. I know there are places like S&OP, but that is again out of the box. They are not connected many places I can see. They just put all the boxes together and then try to make one common plans around. Yes. So you need much more visibility, much more. I mean, every second, whatever change happen at the customer level, you should be on your computer front around. Procurement and sourcing, demand planning, forecastings, and logistics. On demand planning, I can tell you there's a big shortage in the US. At least I've seen around because some of my friends are in this business around. Demand planning is picking up in a big way. All the big companies. Logistic and distributions. Often manufacturing operations are included in the same organization leadership. Now question comes manufacturing operation. If I go with the SCORE model, operation is also part of the supply chain. And majority company I can talk around, like big sectors, auto and this, manufacturing part, which we call as manufacturing, or you may call operation, is being outsourced to a lot extent. So even I've seen the big auto company, everything is coming except putting nuts and bolts. Everything is coming from outside. So naturally the operation part is going down to the tier 2, tier 3 companies around. So you are basically becoming more of a supply chain head. So that mindset has to change from that context around. So many executives expect the company to increase the span of control of the supply chain function. This is where the operating model future, if I look around, let me start on the bottom side, insourcing of activities, which were previously outsourced. Now this change is happening only when we were all going to one countries, one companies, and now we found, guys, we can't put all eggs in one basket. Some activities people have started doing in-house also. The change is there around insourcing, nearshoring, you can say around, increase outsourcing of the low-value activities around. So there are different shift is happening in this channel now. Now, demand for new capabilities. Now, when we talk of these changes, let me put under the 3 headings around. Technical, analyst, which in the past we thought it's not my job, my IT people will do it. No, it's part of your function. You're not going to program it, I agree with you, but concept-wise, business-wise, you guys have to think what you want and the collaborative part. The very first is technical. You have to be knowledgeable of sourcing activities, procurement practices, all regulatory things. If I look from the environment side, regulatory things wise, certainly those compliance part. Planning and scheduling. How do I plan it? How do I schedule it? And flexibility to change them. It's not that I made a plan for 3 months, now I can't touch it. You need to change maybe even every week around sometime. Logistics and distribution. Operation and manufacturing practices. You need to know whether it's a Six Sigma, this thing, whatever you want to think. Analytics. So these are the big source of technical capabilities. Now, if you're getting the people today in supply chain management, the way I've come across with many companies, they are either from X or Y places around. Second skill set, which is the capability I would call around, is analytics part, data analytics. Understanding machine learning, what does it can do, how algorithmics are made around. You may not do it, there are people to support you, but certainly you need people data analytics and digital technologies. What type of digital technology I can use it? Because there's a lot of money goes into technology. You can't just dump into it until you know the process. Since you know the process very well, you can find what is relevant to you. The next thing comes the collaborative part. If you are going to be the supply chain leader of the future, end to end, that means you're going to manage a wide range of stakeholders, inside and outside. If you have to manage the stakeholders around, you need the skills to collaborate. If you cannot manage this team of long team, which are, some may be reporting to you, some may not be reporting to you. If I talk about even the design side, if you are not able to give any input to them and they don't have a confidence in you, you can't collaborate. So you really need a good technical skill, good analytics skill, and a skill to collaborate people around. They should have faith in you that you can deliver something. Now, key reason for change. One reason is, I know if I use the word globalization, now it is under the question mark. I grew up with this terminology, globalization, from 80s, I can say, when I came from the US MBA's program. Globalization, because US, it was wonderful because the cost was too high. And that's the time I was involved with few companies around of outsourcing their items to low-cost country. Because if they make in the US, the cost was enormous. So the US was the one who was giving technology, they were giving the design. Guys, get it made in the low-cost country. Obviously, they tried India that time, 88, 89, I was involved around, but India was very difficult at those days. India was worried that this could become another East India company, something around. You know, that mindset was there, very socialist thinking. But then finally, they went down with China, and now you see what China is today. They become the global world manufacturing. So globalization, now we have learned another lesson from globalization. Guys, okay, it's great. But now we have to think of nearshoring, or we have to not put all eggs into one basket around. Waves of disruptive innovations. So those waves have also come up around. You have seen the disruption with COVID-19. Rising consumer expectations. And consumer also today, they are short of funds, but they want everything, anytime, anywhere, service around. The majority have been exposed during this COVID time to online. Those people who are not doing online shopping, now they want a contactless things around. So mindset has changed. Organizations need to make strategic decisions around. Narrow optimization versus supply chain. Earlier we were doing, I optimize my small activities, but I'm boss of it. Now we are looking as a whole chain. Guys, how do I optimize my chain so that I'm more reliable? My customer experience is better. So this is the mindset going around. A dynamic ecosystem. You can't have transparency. You can't have visibility without having a dynamic ecosystem. So you need all the players to be visible together. That's why we're saying around supply chain term may change to supply network around. So all are network, peer-to-peer connected together. So we need that type of ecosystem. Then comes the competitive, agile, resilient. I think we all know these terms around. So I think I've already touched it, so I can skip this one around. Complex, adaptive network. So network is, the only thing I couldn't talk around is in the past, we were all having simple linear path. One guy does something, gives to the next one. Next one does, goes to the next one. So the chain was like that. And if I want information from the other end around, you have to go through so many players. But now people say, guys, no, from straight line, I can go into the network. All are connected, like a control tower. Like at the airport, you see around there's a control tower. All the airplanes are coming around from different places. They know what is going, who's going to land and who's doing. Every information is available. So we have to get out maybe in time to come from straight line to digital. And digital means then we have to get into the network. So when you can imagine around moving from straight line, one step by one step, now we want everybody to be connected, which is possible in blockchain also easily. So you need different skill sets. You need different ideas. Your business processes will change. In the past, we were making process, okay, guys, from plan to source, how do I even do it? From source to make, how do I do it? Now we're going to talk around in a network approach. That's the philosophy. Leadership and professional competencies around. You have those technical competencies, great. But at the leadership level, because now you're covering wide span. If you're covering a wider range of the span around, you need much more. Ability to negotiate, ability to collaborate around, strategic thinking, ability to manage virtual teams. You can imagine around today, if you are having a team of 30 people working with you or 40 people, you're not going to the office, you're sitting at home and trying to connect with them. Managing people online is different than face-to-face. You need different skills around. Communication skill, presentation skill, and monitoring skills. Different way. Because when you're sitting along with them, then you can manage easily, relatively easier. But when you're not sitting with them, each one is doing at his own time, how do we manage? Ability to persuade also and communicate effectively. You can imagine around, in addition to technical, so COVID-19 has also taught us, guys, if you want to be the supply chain leader in a virtual world in some areas, you need different skills as well. So this is where it comes broadly. If I look around, this is again the basic supply chain management tasks which are happening to help us in the throughputs, input and output. Purchasing, operation, logistics, demand planning. So one side I have got, in a very simple version I'm explaining now, supplier, other side I have got a customer. So in short, my supply chain is here. I need a good procurement office, sourcing office, logistics, demand planning, and operation. So if you put them together, this is what I think the ITC International Trade Center, which is a part of the United Nations and also part of the World Trade Organizations, their focus in, I think, around 70 countries they're working on. This is one of their major activities, is to help them improve the supply chain activity. Because they feel country cannot compete without a good supply chain. So it is not the people alone, it's the country also competing. Country means the companies and the people. So they have to have very good understanding of the supply chain. So this is where it comes up. Now, what is IDSCM? Now here comes around what these people have done, because this is their mandate around, and we work very closely with them. And I was based there in 1988, long back, and I worked with them on few activities like green procurement and those subjects. We worked in 88, 89 and promoted in the worldwide. Now, IDSCM, when we talk around, is International Diploma in Supply Chain Management. It comes from ITC, International Trade Center, Geneva, a UN organization. Over the past 10 years, if I see this program, ITC Geneva has helped train 50,000 experts in approximately 75 countries. The global certification is based on a rigorous set of standards and competency. The content has been developed by the best experts in the world. You can see sitting there, they have exposure to the best people in the world around, the best academicians, best experts around. They've taken those and developed these things. Now it's a new aspiring, to cater to both the newest aspiring supply chain executives and experienced SCM persons for further career development. So it can cover two people around, those who are even experienced, but they might be experienced in one area, but not the holistic way. For them also is relevant. For the new people who are coming from colleges with 1 year, 2 year experience, but they feel, guys, I want to get into the supply chain part. So then this also helps them. The designations are recognized because the certificate comes with the UN logos, ITC logos throughout the world around. Once attained, this indicates achievement at a certain level of world-class knowledge, skills, and competence. Because the course content, exams are designed, developed by the best experts of the world around. So this is where it comes up around. Now, IDSCM certification, why I would think around strategic focus is from tactical mindset to strategic leadership. If I go with a linear path, it is a very tactical path. I've got 4 functions, guys, okay, you take care of procurement, you take care of logistics, and I'm the supply chain head, fine, for namesake. But I'm not having complete end-to-end visibility around. So we are moving from tactical level to strategic level. This is the way content has been designed around. It talks about the changes which are happening around, and the content also gets changed after a few years around, so it is not a static thing around. Relevant questions, the question which come for the test part is always online tests around, but application based. Some are recall questions, but not the type of education we have gone to the college. Everything has to come from the book. If the teacher has not taught us, why it has come? You have experts, so you have to know it around. Transportable, that means this being from the UN is globally recognized. It's a milestone for those professionals who take the ownership of their career around. This is what I will call. Now, the type of certificate, the way it looks like, you can see is a UN International Diploma. There are 2 things, International Diploma, International Certificate. People get certificate when they do X or Y. Suppose there are 4 modules we're talking around sourcing. I do sourcing, I get international certificate in supply chain management with a focus on sourcing. Then if I do operation, I get on operation. If I do it logistic, I get on logistic. But once I finish all the 4, I get international diploma covering all the things. So this is how it is around. So technically you get 4 certificate international and 1 diploma once you finish all. This is how it looks around: strategic and planning, one certificate. Sourcing is another, operation is another, logistic is another. Now the setup is like this. One is on strategy, the module 1. It talks about the supply chain context. To some extent, I've already touched it. Strategy, supply chain strategy. How do I build it? Procurement and supply, again, supply positioning around, which I know many of you know very well. Strategy part, Peter Krasik model around supply strategy, market analysis. Sourcing is very, very important around, again, the specification. To me, that is the heart of the module 2. How to write the specs around. I was doing one workshop for one of the bank in Australia and New Zealand few days back. I said, who write the specification for you? They said, guys, our people sitting in the IT side, they write the specs around. I said, then what do you do? IT people have already discussed with the supplier. They got the specs around. And now they tell the procurement people to place an order. I said, what's the role for you? You're just shopping, nothing more. You can't even negotiate. You don't have the power to negotiate because something has decided already. So this is where we want people to learn much more than that. It is not shopping. You can't contribute until you know how to write a specs around. There's a way of writing a specs around. Supplier appraisal design. How do you appraise a supplier? Do I appraise by looking at 10 pages from the supplier? Do I visit them? Do I check with the references around? How do I do it? Obtaining or evaluating offers. How do I evaluate the offer? Should I go with L1? Should I look at the technical evaluation? Should I have different type of scoring around? Negotiation. How do I do it? Should I say, guy, give me 5% discount? That is not a negotiation. Negotiation with facts. Why do you want 5%? Why do you want 10%? Have you done your own costing? Particularly when people are buying software, very tricky. And this is what we were doing with one of the companies around. He said, guy, even if I give a contract to someone for managing my website, somebody will tell you, sir, I can do in 7 days. Same thing, somebody will say in 2 months. You have to get a good feel of it and how to do it. So we came with some of the checklists for them to work on this. Operation part. Now you've done the sourcing. How do I manage the contracts around, contract disputes around, all those things around supplier performance, operation management, process support around. Logistics. Very important. At the end of the day, it's a flow. And flow cannot happen without logistics. Very clear. So you need to talk about logistics movement, management around quality in the supply chain, inventories, export, import, custom clearance, packaging, transportation, all, and CRM. So this put together is the 4 modules. So if you do one, so let me show you what it covers around. The strategy part, it gives you the same thing in a little more details. Supply chain context, organization strategies. So once you finish this, so this strategy and planning part, you get international certificate on strategy and certificate. And this comes from the ITC, the way you can see in the logo on the top. So it comes from them. So this is the content. And then we go down to the next one on sourcing. The scope of coverage is specification. And how do we consider the specification? Supplier appraisal design, appraising the supplier, obtaining and evaluating offer, the tender process around, preparing negotiation and negotiating part. So negotiation also the strategy and tactics, the body language, the country culture around, how do I do it? Other parties from X country or Y country, what approach I need to follow around. All that thing is part of it around. So once you finish this, then you get international certificate, again in supply chain management, but focus on sourcing. The next is operations. Now this operations obviously covers more on the managing the contracts around, process supports, operation managements, evaluating performance, managing the contract. I think this is also very critical. So this is again the third component, the third module you can say. And the fourth module is logistics. Logistics management, quality at the supply chain, inventory part, managing inventories, warehousing. How do I do the design of the warehouse? Location, layout part of it, location part. I remember some companies even approached us during the COVID, after the COVID-19, the lockdown was over. If I want to do social distance, I can't afford to keep my 30 people in my warehouse. What do I do? So the mindset came, should we do 3 shifts? One approach, yes, in some companies, but which are already working 3 shifts, what do they do? Then came the concept of robotics around. So all that, even the layout need to be changed around. So you need all that understanding around. Packaging part, how do I package it? Again, are the package material is environmental friendly or not? Transportation part, should I go through the 3PL? Should I do it myself? Should I go through the 4PL? What approach I follow around? How things should be delivered around? And in the transportation also, we talk about the Incoterms. Which Incoterms? Should I go with DDP? Should I go with CIF? What are my risks and what is this? What is the type of coverage of insurance? I can tell honestly on this, I must have seen more than 100 companies around in the last 10 years. And majority cases, when I talk to them, guys, Incoterms, do you know what are the risks in this? I think that's a tricky part around. They go, oh, my all risks are covered because of insurance, but they don't know what type of insurance it is. So that I think knowledge is required around. That's what we do. CRM, yes, because at the end it's end to end. You need to do it. So the skill what we are learning in this is same thing. I'm trying to elaborate a little further. Strategy and planning. You learn the strength and weakness in enterprise planning. We all do enterprise planning, but there are some weaknesses, and now how we can cover it. No one size fits all. If one says, oh guys, they are doing this and I will follow the same model, no. Each company has got a different culture. Even in the same sector, I've seen one X has got technologically very strong, other one technically poor, so their approaches will be different. So you just cannot take copy from each other's around. Using tools to set targets around, performance evaluation, that's the one we have the learning and the competency part. Sourcing, you will learn specifying, analyzing, appraising, obtaining, negotiating, contracting. So this is what we learn in the second module if I talk of competencies. The third one, what I learn on the competency is inventory management, operations, environmental management, managing finance along with supply chain. Logistic is again coming up. This word inventory management is coming both the places. There is on the operation side, and here it is purely on maintaining the inventory part. CRM, that's what we do. Earning your credential will help you what? So basically, you're getting the master the knowledge, you're getting exposed to the best subject around, content-wise, and better outlook. Getting started now. Eligibility criteria, you need a first level university degree and 1 year experience is required. Some young people I've seen around, they're damn smart enough. They say, guys, I don't want to wait. I've done my MBA, but I want to do this. Or I've done my BBA, but I want to do this because I want to make my career in supply chain. I mean, at my age, I can say now, in my time, this was not the growth area except in the last 10, 15 years. I've seen this function has grown only whenever there's a crisis. 2008, when I was in the US, when the recession came, global recession, this profession picked up the momentum. Everybody said, oh yeah, these guys are very important. Now when we saw the COVID-19, supply chain, procurement, logistic, everybody got the importance around. So now people are realizing, so they're very important around. Some people have made up their career in this, particularly e-commerce I've seen around. So you need that around. Registration process, you have to contact for the course material around. And there's a campus site we have, online campus site. It is managed by ITC Geneva. And this is covering all the 75 countries who use it. So one campus, it's a global campus and managed through ITC Geneva, and everybody can register there itself. And then there's a peer-to-peer network also available there around. Scheduled exams online. There are 4 exams, 1 exam per each module. Duration is 6 months for each module around maximum, but I've seen people doing earlier also, some people. So one could do in 3 months, one could do 4 months, depending. It's a pace as you're self-paced around. Multiple choice questions. Total number of questions is 140. Time is 2 hours, 30 minutes. So technically 1 minute per question, you have to keep in mind. And the score, if you do score between 55 to 74, you just get a pass. 75 to 89, you get a distinction. And anything more than 90, up to 100%, excellence. So you get on top of the certificate this also. So this is how it is. The format of the questions are basically, as I said to you in the very beginning, application-based and recall questions. Like, which of the following characteristics characterize the critical quadrant in supply positioning model? A, B, C, D, E. So one has to find the right answers around, and you have a 1 minute. Some question may be even longer this. So this is what you need to know. So you have to really know the depth of it. So when you study the books, reading books alone is not good enough until you correlate with the practical life. If you're not able to correlate with the practical life and cramming it, you can't pass. Let me make it very clear. So you have to read it, link it with the real life around, and then appear for the exams. So sample question 2, again, I've given to you, which of the following statement about supply strategies are correct? Different things around. And by the time you read it, the 1 minute is gone. So it's a very time precious, time stress is there around, certainly. So we need clarity of mind, quickness of the mind. So that's what we're looking around. So guys, this setup I've explained already, so I don't need to repeat on this. The support which we provide from IPSCM-INDIA, which is again a part of ISM-INDIA. So fast track IDSM journey, we help you. We organize on a regular basis some webinars and workshops. Online training also will be there around. Prepare at your space. Complimentary webinar, as I said to you. Mentoring and coaching. If some people feel I'm not understanding this, how do I go about it? So that could be also done around. Weekly newsletter is there. We have the quiz also around, weekly quiz, and peers networking around. So this is where one thing I've learned in this type of field, once we are out of the college, we learn a lot from the peers. We have many network on the peers group, you must have seen. Recently, we started for the public sector also with the help of the government and Asian Development Bank and the World Bank. So peer-to-peer people do a lot of network around. And they share with each other more than us, I can say. Somebody says, I did this. How are you doing this? So peer-to-peer network is a wonderful way of learning around. This is why in the many countries around developed country, you'll find there are community of practices. And community of practice meet once in 3 months, once in 2 months, over a coffee, a tea, a drink, and share guys each other. And that network also helps you in getting a job also easier. Well, friend, with this, I want to thank you all for the patient hearing and wish you all the best for your quest for SCM certification.